So we're going to open up for some questions, but I want to put one question to you, which is kind of the theme of this conference. When you were commissioner in New York, how do you actually made this change together with your department and all the planners in your department?
It's a great question. You know, I actually started my transportation career at New York City DOT. And so it was interesting to come back these many years later to the department, and a lot of the same people were there, which was also interesting. But what I learned also was that you are never going to be able to change a city and get the buy-in of the department if you don't bring everybody together to do it. So when we did the strategic plan, which I showed you, we got everybody all together to agree on the vision and the policy and the programs. And they didn't all agree that, you know, I said I wanted to eliminate traffic fatalities, and my traffic engineers were really against that. They didn't think that we could accomplish it. And so we changed the goal, and we put in some different columns that acknowledged that other people had something to do with this change, with meeting this goal. And so because they were part of the process, it was a really important way to get everybody involved and to buy into the program. And what I found is that there was so much talent at the New York City Department of Transportation, 4,500 people there, and yet I think there was a fear about trying new things in the sense that they would be responsible or liable for what happened. And when I became commissioner, I said, I will take responsibility for everything that happens, everything that goes wrong, everything that goes, you know, doesn't go the right way. It's my fault. And so what ended up happening is it was almost like peeling off the top of a can, you know, and all of these new ideas were there. You know, the transportation engineers and planners in the city, they know the city, they love the city, they know it needs to change. But to take that risk requires some leadership to say, it's okay, you know, if it doesn't work out, I will take over. And so many of the ideas that you saw up there, they were generated by the men and women at the New York City Department of Transportation. So I think it really is important to get that buy-in right at the start.
Okay, so what do you guys think? Any questions for from the audience? Please, you have the opportunity. Please.
It's all right. We may have answered them all.
Okay, there's one, and I will repeat the question. We have no mic, so I will just say it out loud.
It's a really important question. And it happens on the cooperation and the coordination happens on a lot of different levels. On the city government level, when I showed you the street design manual, that took, I mean, even though it looked like, oh, here's the street design manual, that took 11 city agencies coming together over 2 years to agree what the new standards were going to be for the streets. So setting that framework is important to do at the start. And then with our plaza programs, what we did is we worked very closely with business improvement districts to identify the spaces that they were looking to have done. And so Mayor Bloomberg, when he became mayor, was really adamant that you can create great public spaces, but you have to maintain them. And so in the 1980s, New York City created lots of public spaces, but there was no maintenance agreement in place, and so they turned into garbage lots. And so we worked very hard to make sure that every public space we created had a maintenance agreement and local partners that agreed to take care of it. So we worked with the local business improvement districts to do that in cities across, in communities across the city. But importantly, not every community has the financial wherewithal to create a business improvement district. They just don't. They're starting out. And so we also created a program whereby communities where we would help provide the resources to them And so we created a new neighborhood plaza partnership program where we worked with formerly homeless people and former inmates who then took care of the plantings and used that as a way to get a greening credential so they could get jobs in that arena, and formerly homeless people that actually got jobs. And they became part of this very big network and started to build up this new capacity in these areas, which was great for business. And then when these businesses, have the ability to support a kind of bid structure, then we take the money and we move it on to another area. So it's a comprehensive open space strategy that really does depend on the involvement of communities of all sorts of different sizes and capacities, but it's a really important model going forward.
Okay, there's one up on the balcony.
I know that you had former plans for congestion charging in New York, but those proposals were turned down by the state government in the New York State. Do you think those ideas will pop up again?
Yes. No, I mean, I'm so jealous of what you did here in Stockholm. I mean, congestion pricing was one of the first things that we did when I started. The very first thing on the agenda was congestion pricing. And we got very far. We got it through the city council. We got all of the newspapers to agree. The newspapers in New York City do not agree on anything, let alone something like congestion pricing. So that was a huge accomplishment. And the polls all showed that people were in favor of it, but then we got to, the state legislature, and I don't know how it is here, but a lot of our fate gets determined by legislators in Albany, and so they didn't even take it to a vote. It was sort of disposed of on the side. But there's a new plan that's up, that's the fair plan. What's it is? Fair plan? Move NYC. There, that's even better. See? The branding people have gotten involved. Because let's face it, congestion and pricing, not a great, selling point. So, but we're very hopeful that it's going to happen. There's no question that it needs to. Our transit program is underfunded. We need the revenues. It's a much better way of managing the city. So it's not a matter about if it happens, it's a matter of when it happens.
Okay, there's one right in the back.
Great.
And last summer I met from Street Films, and he asked me about this Vision Zero. And he was quite disappointed when I said that practically in Swedish road planning, the Vision Zero hasn't really looked at the needs of bikers and walkers and so on. And his idea of this concept was quite the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
How is your perception of Vision Zero, and how do you work with that? And how do you know anything about how it was used in Swedish traffic?
Well, I'm not an expert on how it worked here.
Ja, det kan vi absolut. The question was about the reality of the Vision Zero. The Vision Zero. There is a.
I can answer this. So the question was, how is Vision Zero working out here? How come it's not really what it is in New York City? We're focused on Vision Zero improving the pedestrian experience, the cycling experience, very critical to achieving the zero fatality goals of Vision Zero. And somehow it's not translated, that's not how it is implemented here by the road authority. Is that fair? So I think it's really important to set the goal, to say Vision Zero is where we're going. And I think that messaging is extremely important. Different cities will use different ways to get there. For me, I don't think you're going to create a safer city unless you have better biking and unless you have safer cycling. I mean, it's just critical. So we've been focused, all cities are different, but we've really been focusing on making sure that our streets work for everybody. All users. So it's not just you're safe behind a windshield, but you're safe anytime you're interacting on the street. So I think maybe the New York version will be different from the Stockholm version, different from the Chicago version. I mean, I think you really need to work with what you've got, but we are really deeply focused on really improving the infrastructure for cycling and walking as a critical element of the Vision Zero's program.
Okay, there's one up there. Yes?
I'm Caroline Schobert from DB Schenker. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. My question is regarding goods deliveries in cities.
Hertz?
Goods.
Oh, goods.
Because in order to have an attractive and alive city, we need to deliver foods and the things to the shops and to the restaurants. What is your experience regarding this part of the logistics in your project?
So the question is goods delivery, and how did goods delivery affect the implementation of the projects? And it's a great question, because goods delivery is a challenge for cities everywhere. And one of the things that we worked on was, and it's in line with the notion that our streets don't have to be used the same way all the time. And so we started a pilot program, which has now been made permanent, doing off-hour deliveries. And so a lot of the deliveries are made off hours, double-door deliveries, and it's gone a long way to reducing congestion, the gas bills of freight companies, and the agita, the anxiety associated with it. And so it's really been a model that now we actually paid people to participate in the pilot for it, and now these companies, there are over 30 companies that are part of this off-hour delivery program, and so that's been a success. But there's a lot more opportunity with deliveries. I'm a big fan of looking at sort of freight villages on the edge of cities and bringing, zero-emission vehicles in, breaking down the freight, and pulling it in that way. I think that's going to be a really important piece going forward. And you've seen a lot of technology that's going to leverage our ability to have that be a much lighter impact on our cities.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
I wonder what was the main challenges in terms of the implementation of these projects, because you have shown that kind of successful projects, but was there any of your projects that were not as successful or were,
No, they were all 100% successful.
Next question.
Yeah, no.
Challenges. I mean, what was the main challenge for you in terms of the logistic, the truck,
Yeah.
parking?
Yeah, the biggest challenge I found in everything that we did was changing the expectations that New Yorkers had for their streets. That our streets could be more than just, speedways for moving cars and parking lots for storing cars. And so that bigger imagination for how we can create a more livable city that actually performs better was really a big change. And so that happened, that involved everything from changing the profile of Times Square to putting in the bike lanes, to off-hour deliveries, to our new ferry system and new routes that we put in. Again, it was a very different way of looking at the concrete, asphalt, and steel of our city. And so I think that New Yorkers' expectations have changed in 7 years. And all of the programs that we started, which were sort of our showcases, like whether it's the protected bike lanes or the plazas, all of those programs we turned them into application-based programs. So now communities apply to the New York City Department of Transportation for bike lanes, for bus lanes, for plazas. And the demand is off the charts. So we went from people not knowing what these really were all about and kind of resisting them because this notion that I'm from the government and I'm here to help was not really so popular, to moving toward, yes, bring it to me now, the sooner the better. And so I think that's been a big, big change.
So a last question. Yes?
From the School of Architecture. When we look at these pictures, there's a lot of work with pedestrian and bike safety, which is very interesting, but compared to some other discussions going on, I don't remember a picture showing no car lanes, or only pedestrian and bike streets. Did you try that at any point, or is it something you will try, or is it something you think is not really for New York? Or?
Yeah, no, I do. We do have shared streets, and I didn't show you
The
everything.
question, what was the question? Maybe repeat the question.
Oh, please repeat the question. Or do you want me to repeat the one?
I don't remember. The question was,
How
pedestrian
come
only?
you didn't do enough, man? There's no pedestrian streets. What about that?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
we do have pedestrian-only streets. I didn't show them here, but it's a really important question because it is, that's where we are moving to. And I'm not transportation commissioner anymore, but we did have plans, particularly in sort of areas where you've got very narrow streets and a lot of foot traffic. Lower Manhattan is perfect for that. You saw what we did in Times Square. So again, taking a look at where those interventions make the most sense, where you can bring that urban acupuncture in and sort of remove the cars and bring the people back safely. That's certainly the next step. And I think that the administration is going to be building on what we did here in those designs going forward.
So just one last question for me. What do you answer the people that say you're anti-car?
I say I'm pro-choice.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.